Now, it's around about that time again where the content has been out for a couple of months and people are going to start wondering, when is the next new piece of content coming to Cataclysm Classic? Well, on the basis we already know the next new piece of content is only going to be Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman, I want to actually talk about something that should also come in alongside that. We've spoke about it in podcasts, I've also spoke about it myself in a couple of different videos now, and that's the Molten Front. Now, the Molten Front is located in Hyjal, and there's certain things you're going to have to do before you can even start on the Molten Front. This is not quick, and unless Blizzard actually do something to make it quicker, you're looking at around about 29 to 30 days before you've actually completed the Molten Front. Now, this dropped with Firelands originally, which obviously makes sense because the whole theme of it is setting up a forward outpost inside Firelands. So as you progress through the story, you're eventually going to end up in Firelands, so it kind of makes sense that it goes alongside the raid in terms of lore. The thing is, it doesn't make sense that it goes in terms of items and in terms of how we actually play Classic today. And what I mean by this is, if you don't know already, when we go into Firelands, you're going to be getting 378 item level gear from normal bosses, up to 391 for heroic, and this is just outside of Ragnaros, which actually drops 397 eye level. So obviously that's going to be the highest you get, but you're going to be getting 378 even if you're just clearing normal. Now, the reason this is relevant when it comes to the Molten Front is because it's going to take the best part of a month, like I've already said, to be able to actually unlock the vendors to start getting the gear from the Molten Front. And the gear's only 365 eye level. If you farm all of normal Firelands for those 4 weeks that it's going to take you to finish the Molten Front, odds are you're not going to need any of that 365 eye level gear. Now, there is a couple of things that are actually really good though, which you will want from the rep. And the reason it would be nice for this to open before Firelands actually comes is because some of it's going to be really useful in the raid. And I'm not actually talking about the 365 items that drop, things like this. Now, you hunters are no doubt counting down the days until you can put Flintlock on your weapon, because not only does it deal a little bit of additional damage when it actually procs, but also it's going to give you 300 agility. Now, there's a few things like this. There's some 365 crafted weapons that come from the Molten Front as well, and there's even a few trinkets like Ricket's Magnetic Fireball, which, don't get me wrong, it's very vanity, as in, like, the proc on it doesn't do massive amounts of damage. In fact, it's fairly negligible completely, but it looks pretty cool. And if you've been really unlucky with trinkets, one of these 365 trinkets might actually tide you over until you get your reputation trinket when we actually get in Firelands itself. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Scott, actually, it wouldn't be right because we're going to be able to get exalted with Avengers of Hyjal during Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman and instantly buy all our gear from the reputation vendor for Firelands. Well, no, that's wrong as well. So the reputation that you actually gain from the Molten Front has absolutely nothing to do with Firelands. In fact, it's only Guardians of Hyjal rep, which, if I was to hazard a guess, there's probably not many people that haven't already got exalted with Guardians of Hyjal with the amount of heroics we've been doing in Phase 1. The only people I see it being pretty good for would be someone who's coming back specifically for Firelands. It will be a great way to get rep without spamming heroics. Now, that's really the first part of the video. The first part of the video is the reasoning why I truly believe that we want Firelands to come separate from the Molten Front. So we want the Molten Front ASAP, because unlike Tol Barad, where you could pretty much knock out Exalted and get your trinket in like 5 or 6 days, without them making it the same as Tol Barad, where actually you can just go and get all of the dailies for all of the different sort of little hubs within the Molten Front straight away, it's going to be quite long, because it's all gated behind a currency. So I'll tell you a little bit about that currency, but first, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, or if you haven't liked this video, what are you waiting for? Do it. And if you're looking for a good way to support the channel, then consider becoming a member and join all of these guys that are scrolling along the screen now that have already joined as a member. There's a few members only videos. I do always try and plan to do more, but at the moment, with the amount of Cataclysm and retail I'm playing, it's hard enough just to actually get regular videos out, but there will be members-only content at some point when I've got a bit of time. So how does the Molten Front actually work? Well, there's actually 2 separate quest chains that unlock when this launches. So there's one single quest chain that is not actually really anything to do with the Molten Front, but it unlocks at the same time as the Molten Front, and this is called Elemental Bonds. So to quote Wowpedia, what this quest actually is the Elemental Bonds questline is an epic series of quests to restore Thrall to his former self after Major Domo's Staghelm splits him into 4 essences of elements. So it's not a long quest line, but at the end of it you get a 365 cloak. So if you've been unlucky with getting a cloak up until the point where this launches, it's quite an easy quest chain to get a 365 cloak on, or even on your ults. Now, something to bear in mind, and something for you to do right now if you haven't already done it, is make sure that you've done the quest line in Hyjal basically to completion. So just go and do every quest in Hyjal, because it is more or less right at the end of the Hyjal quest chains anyway. But you will need to do that, because if you haven't, you're going to be in an incorrect phase where you're not actually going to be able to get the Molten Front quests anyway. So if you haven't done it already, just go and do Hyjal to completion. It's not quite completionist, but it is the vast majority of it. But yeah, the Elemental Bonds questline is not really part of the Molten Front in the grand scheme of things, but it is an easy way to get a 365 cloak. Moving on to the actual Molten Front itself. So first of all, if you've done the quest lines that you need to get done in Mount Hyjal, you'll be able to pick up a quest called Guardians of Hyjal, Firelands Invasion. If you haven't, you'll get a quest called Guardians of Hyjal, Call of the Ancients. And Call of the Ancients is basically going to guide you around to make sure that you do all the quests you need to do to be able to do the Molten Front. So it'll be one or the other, but as I say, just get those quests done now. And then you get a fairly short quest chain where you're going to get 16 Marks of the World Tree. Now, Marks of the World Tree are what you're going to use to progress through each phase. So each phase will be gated behind a certain amount of Marks of the World Tree that you need to hand in. But also, once you've got through the entire phase system, so basically got all the way to the end, you'll unlock free vendors where you can spend these Marks of the World Tree on 365 gear, trinkets, pets, all that sort of thing. Things that you would expect. Once you've done the initial quest line, you're now going to unlock dailies. There's not going to be many, don't worry. Pretty much like 3 dailies a day is all you're going to start with. And you're going to need to get 20 Marks of the World Tree to hand in to progress into the next phase. You're going to get 4 a day, so it's like 5 days of dailies to be able to progress to the next phase. After that is where it gets a little bit long. Now you're going to have more dailies, so you're going to have enough dailies to get 14 Marks of the World Tree a day, but you need 150 to progress to the next phase. So yeah, 11 days of dailies before you can move on. Now, I do want to point out, during all of this, you're not really getting a lot. Of course, you're getting some gold and you're progressing through the phases, but there's no vendors available or anything to buy gear, so you literally need to get all the way to the end of this before any of this is even worthwhile. So if you're going to give up halfway through, you might as well not bother. You need to get to the end. But once you've handed in those 150, it is starting to look a little bit closer, and you're going to be able to start getting around 25 a day. It's at this point where you're doing the Druids of the Talon, the Shadow Wardens area, where you're actually going to be able to start unlocking vendors, because once you've completed basically the quest line in each area, you'll unlock a vendor for each. The thing is, it's not just as simple as that. To unlock each vendor, it's going to cost another 125 Marks of the World Tree. The good thing is, by now you're getting about 25 a day, so it's not that bad. It's only sort of 5 days to unlock each vendor, but that is another 15 days to get all 3. Although as you unlock each one, you will get slightly more. I think by the end of it, it works out you're getting about 31 a day in total. So like you can see, it's a lot of dailies. It's going to take a long time, and unless Blizzard make it quicker by, I don't know, just opening all the phases and letting you just do dailies each day to get rep and then spend them on gear or something like that, where it doesn't actually progress through and you're not being gated behind those Marks of the World Tree each day, I don't really see what else they could do, literally, other than that, or doubling the rewards so it's twice as fast, or whatever they do. But ultimately, if we're in Firelands for a month waiting to get all the way through the Molten Front, all the rewards from this just really diminish in value, except for things like I spoke about already, like flintlocks for the hunters, as an example. But like you can see with the rewards I'm putting on screen now, yes, they're okay, but they are only 365, and I would guess by the time we actually go into Firelands, you're probably going to be using better anyway. But there are some interesting items that are not actually gear related, but again, unless you're a collector or unless you're just trying to get every recipe in terms of crafting, just because you like to be a completionist in some way, kind of makes this a little bit pointless. At least with the Tol Barad dailies and reputation, there was like a really decent big trinket behind that rep, and one that tanks are going to use pretty much for the rest of the game. So Blizzard, give us some time, add this in with Zul'Gurub and Zolaman, and let people get some of this 365 gear, and ultimately actually have more content to do when all there is Zul'Gurub and Zolaman available anyway. But hopefully this was a decent overview of what the Molten Front is, how it works, and the reason we do actually need it before Firelands launches. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. We've got quite a few other videos lined up over the next couple of days, and all about Cataclysm, all about around Firelands, around Zul'Gurub, Zolaman, so things you're not going to want to miss. So I'll see you on the next one.